Welcome to Mysterious Goings On. We're going to get right to the show after these messages. Okay, who has a podcast, then writes an ebook about podcasting and doesn't do an audiobook version of it? Well, not me. I've done that. In fact, I'm very excited to tell you, dear listeners, that the podcast option, my recent top-selling ebook on podcasting, my journey through 15 years as a podcaster, broadcaster, host, guest, and observer, is now an Audible audiobook. It's really, really, really exciting for me to be able to present this to you through Audible, which is available on Amazon.com, where the ebook link is as well. And in this fast listen, my experience comes to you through stories, practical tips, and advice from my hundreds of hours as a guest, producer, podcast host, and more. And the podcast option, if I say so myself, is mandatory listening for those new to podcasting, and it should be a welcome addition to veteran podcasters' library. So check out the podcast option read by yours truly, Alex Greenwood, or as they say there, the J. Alexander Greenwood, because that's my pen name, and that's a long story, which if you dig through my podcast, eventually you'll find out what that means. But the point being today, the podcast option is available now as an Audible audiobook. I've got a link in the show notes to make it easy for you. Please do me a favor, go get that audiobook. Or if audiobooks aren't your bag, there's also a link for you to get it as an ebook. Again, the podcast option. I certainly hope you will choose it. With daily headlines telling of COVID pandemic fatigue, depression, and sadly suicides of influential role models, immigration policies tearing families apart, we can all use a bit of hope in our lives. Dr. Rosalind Tomkins wants to encourage listeners to become citizens of hope through her campaign and spread positivity to everyone who needs it with the power of social media. She's the founder of National Month of Hope, as well as the founder and president of Mothers in Crisis Incorporated. Dr. Rosalind Tomkins launched the Hope Challenge this year, where the goal is to see 10,000 Hope Connections take place through 2019. Well, I'll tell you what, it's been a tough year for all of us, and hope is in short supply, so I'm glad to have Dr. Rosalind here on the show. Welcome to Mysterious Goings On.
I am delighted to be here with you.
It's good to have you. So I've read up on you a little bit, and you've had quite a story. Would you care to tell everybody where you come from, what's going on, and maybe a little bit about your journey to hope?
Well, my journey to hope actually started when I was 12 years old. And I started experimenting with drugs and alcohol, and I stayed in a state of addiction, I would say, for about 12 years. And from that and the experiences that I went through with the addiction, when I came out on the other side, by the grace of God, I realized that hope was a powerful force that kind of helped me at each stage, each level. And then I saw how hope helped others when I started Mothers in Crisis and began to work with women who were addicted to drugs and alcohol, and just looking over the years, over these past 3 decades, because we're celebrating 30 years this year, and to see how hope really does make a difference.
And I'm not challenging you, but this is something I've heard for years about, and at least in my business life. Okay, and hope is not a strategy. So tell me how to dispute that. How is hope a strategy, or is it?
Well, I don't know about whether hope is a strategy. I do know that hope is a force, and it's a force that's needed no matter what the strategy, to keep us moving forward. Because the moment you begin to feel like it's not going to work, or hopeless, or you might as well give up, then all productivity stops right there. So that's definitely needed.
That's a great point. And I think great leaders inspire hope in others. Hope that work will get better, or this project will eventually end, or whatever people are going through. Well, let's talk. I'm really fascinated. Tell us a little bit about your book. What's going on with that? What are we talking about here with your new book?
As long as there's breath in your body, there's still hope. And it begins with my journey through what I call the hellhole of addiction.
Yeah.
I share various things that I experienced, that I went through, and then I talk about how I was able to make it out on the other end, as I said before, by the grace of God. And then I began to talk about, first of all, 8 pearls of wisdom, because I believe that when you go through anything, you should learn something from the experience, good or bad. So I share 8 pearls of wisdom that I learned. And then I talk about releasing the power of hope. And I began to share about this whole hope campaign and what we're doing through the National Month of Hope in April, and other ways to just release the power of hope.
Well, can we talk a little bit about this? Is something I really found interesting and useful out of the book too, is about taking hope breaks. Is this what we're talking about with the pearls of wisdom, or is this separate from that?
Well, that's separate, because the pearls of wisdom were the I call them pearls of wisdom, but I guess it would be the things that I received, the nuggets of wisdom that I received having gone through the experience. And I talk about the power of hope, the power of love, the power of prayer, the power of resilience, the power of unity, the power of humility, the power of passion, and then the power of you. So those were life lessons, I would call them, that I learned. Now, what you're talking about, what you're referring to, is a part of our practice of Hopeology that I share in the book.
All right, let's get to that. I'm curious about Hopeology. That was my next list on the list of questions. So let's hit it.
Okay, now Hopeology. I am, my moniker is Hopeologist, and that's actually a trademark that I trademarked with the U.S. Patent and U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and it is Class 35, and it is promoting the public awareness of hope through public advocacy. And it's actually all of the services that we do. And one of the ways is through what you just mentioned about the hope break, that we encourage people to intentionally schedule hope breaks, to schedule a little hope into your day.
I mean, that it sounds. I mean, I'm laughing not because at it, but I'm tickled by the idea, because it's. Pardon me. Okay, don't take this the wrong way. It sounds so simple, but taking a hope break, right? I mean, who thinks of that? That's why you're the hopeologist. So can we go through some of these tips on the hope break? So there's some steps here, right? And the first one is you just said is schedule breaks into your normal routine in 5-minute increments.
5-minute increments. And when we first started this was, I think it was in 2019 when we started the hope breaks. What I literally did was schedule an alarm on my phone to remind me. And when it would go off, it would be like, oh, it's time for a hope break. And it really made a difference, because what I would do, and so what we encourage everyone to do, is once you schedule it, whenever you pick the time, when it's your time, go off to a quiet place, go somewhere where you're alone, and just begin to breathe. And we hear all the talk about mindfulness today, and how important that is, to just be able to center and to just breathe, because sometimes we don't even realize, especially when you're going through tough times, you're literally holding your breath. So just to breathe about 5 to 10 minutes, 5 to 10 breaths, deep breaths, and then begin to think about or imagine the best case scenario to whatever it is you're experiencing. Because oftentimes we go to the worst case scenario and we think about the worst thing that can happen, and then we backtrack from there. But in your hope break, you start with the best. You think about the best thing that can happen. Okay, I'm going to get that job. This is going to work out. Things are going to change. And you think about it, you imagine it, and then you make an affirmation where you begin to speak it out. And that's very important, because we need to hear it. some of the self-talk that we have going on in our brain is so negative. So when you begin to speak those positive things of affirmation, and then you go back to whatever you were doing, whatever the routine, and then you take these hope breaks as often as needed. And what I can say from the hundreds of people that have been doing this for the past couple of years now, that everyone talks about how after a point in time, you just start thinking more hopeful thoughts, things that once would automatically be negative. Now you're thinking of different strategies, of different solutions, and thinking that, no matter what, that there is hope. As I always say, through the practice of Hopeology, it's not the first thought that counts, it's the second thought.
I love that. I love that. Have you found people skeptical of this, though? I mean, you said lots of people are finding it, but are at first, are they kind of giving you the old, okay, Dr. Rosalind, how are they reacting?
Well, you run across so many people, especially since I've been on this campaign since actually 2016, and there are a lot of people who just want to hold on to cynicism and just really don't believe, I've even seen people that curse hope, and I always just share what I know to be true. And one of the things that I say to skeptics, I say, well, one thing about hope, because most of the time when people don't want to hope, is they say, if I hope and then it doesn't happen, then I'm going to be disappointed. And I understand that, because hope deferred makes the heart sick. That's what the word says. But what I say about hope is that it is for the journey and not the destination. So even though the situation may not be or come out like you desire, you have been changed just by turning your face and your attitude and your lifestyle to a more hopeful state of being. And studies reveal that hopeful people live well, live longer, and have a better quality of life.
I totally agree with that. All right, I'm going to ask you another toughie. Here's one for you, okay? What if people, I know, of course, you're a person of faith. What about people who are not people of faith? I mean, is your first word to them, become one, or hope won't work for you? Or what do you say to people who aren't necessarily into religion?
Well, that's the thing I love about hope. Hope is non-sectarian. That's why, I love hope, because it's not about your political affiliation. It's not about your faith. We all need hope. That's something we all have in common. Hope is a unifying force. As a matter of fact, according to the often quoted laws of three, you can only live 3 seconds without hope. Okay. So as it says in Latin, dum spero, while I breathe, I hope. And we all breathe.
I thought I'd stump you on that one. I thought you'd be like, no, I don't like that question at all. That's great. That is great. Okay, yeah, you're contagious. You know that. You're getting to me. You're breaking the ice on me on this deal. Right. You're good. All right, let's go to something else that's pretty prominent in the book. You've got these 7 steps to having hope chats, right? This is great stuff. Do you mind walking us through that?
Absolutely. I love it, because one of the things that we talk about through the practice of Hopeology is that, well, first of all, let me say the 5 tenets of the whole Hope campaign.
Sure.
For one, hope stands for helping others practice empowerment. So right off the bat, we understand that it's active. It's not just, I cross my fingers and I say, I wish I may, I wish I might, wish upon a star tonight. It is active. So hope for self, hope for family, in and for the community, hope for the nation and the world. Okay, so whenever we look at it holistically like that, then we can begin to see that whenever we become more hopeful, we have to share it with other people. And so as we learn how to become more hopeful ourselves, because you can't give what you don't have. And once you become more hopeful, then you say, okay, let me think about someone that may need a little hope. And usually it's someone right in your family, right in your home. And when's the last time that you've had a conversation with them where you looked them face to face? And I know it's been kind of hard with COVID, but nevertheless, whenever you made that heart connection and asked them, how are you doing? What's going on? And you give them your full attention, no cell phones or anything distracting, and really listen with your heart to what they have to say. And then once they share from their heart, don't you have a hope face? And we talk about a hope face. It's whenever it's warm, it's non-judgmental, it's very inviting, where you're really connecting with that person. And then you ask them, deep down, what do you really want?
Yeah.
What is it? And then once they share, no matter what they say, then you can then think of something, even if it may just be, well, I'll help you, I'll pray about that, or I'll look into some resources, or maybe together we can find out how we can help. And you ask them for permission. You say, may I share an idea with you? And usually they'll say, okay. And then you share with them whatever you want to share. And then you leave with something like, you know what, I just want you to know that I'm here for you. Mm. And remember, as long as there's breath in your body, there is hope.
I love that. You know what I also like about that, Dr. Rosalind, is the fact that you're not sitting there, and men have a tendency to do this with women, particularly their mates, trying to solve the problem. Maybe it's just being heard, right? Aha! Yeah, she's pointing to her ring. If you're not seeing that,
I'm married, I know.
Yeah, and it's not. It's because that's how men are wired. We're supposed to fix things. Like if I see my wife upset about something, I want to fix it for her. But sometimes the best thing I can do is just listen to her, I think.
Yes, just listen and just be there in the moment, in the whatever it may be, and then agree with her, of course.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Understand what's going on.
That is so great. So I'm going back to what I said, the earlier refrain. It's deceptively simple, but it does. I mean, I think I've done this. It's just funny. I think I've done this for people in my own way without realizing it was part of Hopeology, because I learned a long time ago. That's one reason I like to do a talk show, is that I'm a pretty good listener. And I think people, when they're having, in my circle, when they're having a tough time, seek me out because they know I'll generally just listen and not try to solve it for them or mansplain it or do all the silly stuff that people do without thinking. And that's what I love to hear, because I'm very, very much, just with my own personal humanity, whatever the word you want to use, I wish more and more people would just listen to each other. Maybe this country would be a little better shape if we could all listen to each other a little more, So I love the Hopeology aspects.
Oh, absolutely. And you keep saying, and I love what you keep saying about it being simple. I like to say it's practical.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have to be something so difficult. It's something that we can all do. And it's something that many of us are doing, but we could maybe do a little better or do a little more. And then be intentional, to be targeting, so many times. And one of the saddest things that I hear about sometimes when I'm sharing these principles is when someone, especially a young person, has committed suicide.
Oh yeah.
And then after, they've done that act where they've taken a permanent solution for a temporary problem, then the parents will go in their room and see all these journals and all this that they've been writing and a cry for help. But no one really took the time to say, listen, what is going on with you? Put that cell phone down. I have a granddaughter. I know how that is. Most of the time is, head down and what have you. But when she spends time with me, at least for a little while, I'm going to look her eyeball to eyeball, and we're gonna connect, and I'm gonna say, are you okay? And just hear what she has to say when she's ready to talk. And that's what we have to do to just check in with one another more so, and especially now.
Oh, especially now. Do you, Are you okay? Here's a question kind of outside the parameters. This is more about your thoughts on the big picture stuff. Are you hopeful about things about I'm talking about, are you hopeful from everything from getting past the pandemic to healing our nation, or do you have concerns, or is the answer, here I go trying to answer the question for you, or is the answer, Alex, I don't know, but without hope I got nothing else? I mean, where are you on that?
Well, I'm very, when sometimes when I say I'm a hopeologist and people begin to think that you just look at things with rose-colored glasses and you don't really know what's going on. You just say, well, it's going to be okay. No, I'm a realist. I know, and I stay informed about the issues that's not only happening here in America, but also around the world, because I travel to different countries and I have different outreaches in different places around the world. So I am very aware of how messed up things are, and and it looks as though things are getting worse. But hope is the thing that comes out in the darkest of night. That's when the stars shine. So what I sense is, as things go from bad to worse, that's when hope is needed the most. I'm in Florida, and as you've probably heard about the collapse that happened of the
Yeah.
tower, and so they're still going through the debris, and there's a hurricane now that's come, and it's so many obstacles. But what warmed my heart and what warms my heart is how hope made the news. And as they were interviewing the family members and asking them, how are you feeling, how are you getting through this, and so many were saying, well, we're just holding on to hope. And I thought about, I say, see, that's when we need hope, when things are getting worse and going from bad and tragedy and crisis. So that's why I'm hopeful, because I believe that this force of hope will be there to help us through whatever happens, however whatever happens, whatever ends up being.
That's good. I appreciate that. You mentioned you've traveled the world a little bit with this message.
Yes.
Here's a left field question for you. Have you observed a culture that different from ours where hope plays more of a central role, or is it just about the same all across humanity you found about hope?
Well, I've seen some situations that are atrocious, and living conditions, because as I travel with a team of missionaries, so often we'll go to like refugee camps in different situations, where after a hurricane or a rape crisis center and things of that nature. And so I've seen every one of those situations, in every one of those situations, how people gravitate towards this message of hope, how sometimes they're just waiting on someone to empower them with hope, to give them a reason to keep on trying, to not give up. And that's from, like I said, some of the atrocious conditions that I've seen in Haiti and in South Africa and the Congo, even Turkey, when we went to the Syrian border during the time when they
Oh,
had the refugees and what have you. But people are hungry for hope. I've seen it in America, just standing in line talking to someone who has gone through a loss, and going through transition, or are afraid because of COVID, and just to share with them, it's the same spark of hope, where people can grab hold of it and say, you know what, thank you. It is going to be all right. Yeah, it's going to be all right. You're breathing, and you're going to make it. Sometimes people just need to hear that.
that's very uplifting to hear that. That really is. Well, let's speaking of uplift, there's some ways we can celebrate hope. You got some tips for us on this?
Well, we have a campaign that I'm so excited about, and it is the 10,000 Balls for Hope and essay contest,
Ooh.
where we are literally giving out stress balls of hope. And we started a campaign in December, and now we're continuing on. And the hope balls are a way of making a point of contact, that whenever you're going through, and whenever you're feeling nervous or tension or hopeless, take that ball I'm breathing, there is hope. It's going to be all right, or whatever you need to say. So we've been giving out these balls, and we're going to be doing that all the way through until next April of 2022. We have an essay contest where people can write in and tell us about their experience with hope and with the stress balls. And we're actually going to be giving away cash prizes. So you can go to makeahopeconnection.com. It has all the information on there. And we just encourage people to celebrate hope. It's so many organizations, Alex, that have hope in their name. And my vision, my dream is that all these people that believe in hope already would see April as a time, and all through the year, but especially April, the National Month of Hope, to begin to celebrate, to acknowledge, to promote, and to lift up hope.
Well, and April is a springtime, summer is time of renewal, right? And hopeful,
Yes.
and all that stuff. Nice. So there's lots of things you can do. I work. I'm on the board of a food charity. We try to help people get healthy food who can't. There's a lot of food deserts in this country, which is inexplicable to me. By the way, we're the wealthiest nation, but anyway, that's another conversation. But the one thing I like about, I've got to admit, like when we go glean food, for harvest time, we go pick up food that otherwise wouldn't get harvested because the companies get what they want, and they leave literally tons of food on the ground. So we go glean that food, and then from that work there is hope, right? And the faces of all the people, right? And then the end of the line where you see the people get this box of healthy food. Those are huge things for me, and I wanted to ask you though, because I know it's true. It's really a rhetorical question. Just volunteering gives me hope.
Oh yes, and we have a list of things that we suggest that you can do in order to spread hope. And what you said about the food bank is one of them. That's just providing help in any way that you can, whether it's providing food, whether it's providing clothing, especially in the winter for homeless people, whether it's reading to children at school, especially in impoverished neighborhoods, whether it's cleaning up and picking up. Sometimes I like to go walking in nature, and it's just amazing how much trash is around. So it's just so many things that when you participate and you become active, and it's hope in action that will bring hope to you and also bring hope to other people. Because when they see you doing it, then it encourages them to say, you know what, I can do that too.
And here I am. I sound like I'm virtue signaling, and I swear I'm not. I'm not. But it's just, I'm looking out my window right now, Dr. Rosalind, and there's a whole strip of land, from my backyard, and I happen to be on a street where it's a little hidden away, and people just apparently think that's where they throw all their trash. And it's outside my fence, but it's, you know what I mean? It was hurting my heart to see it. So I got a couple of bins and trash bags. One afternoon, I went out there and cleaned it up. I filled up 2 bins and half a trash bag. And I did it, and I asked myself as I was hauling that stuff back, okay, I just tell you this. I said to myself, Alex, did you do this because, you're a really good guy, or you're just sick of the trash, or you just wanted people to see you picking up trash for 2 reasons. One, they'll go, wow, that guy's a cool guy. And 2, maybe they'll see me and stop throwing trash out. I don't know. It's all these complex things, but it sounds to me like it doesn't matter, does it?
It doesn't matter. Because
okay.
It brought you hope. Okay, to just do it, because it's always better to give and to do than to receive. And then it also it provides hope by just providing a beautiful landscape where people can look and see beauty instead of trash. Yeah. So it's so many ways, visiting people in prison, writing letters. There's so many ways that we can spread hope. And those are the things that once we're so full of hope, that we encourage people to do throughout the year, and especially during the month of April.
Yeah, I was going to say we don't have to wait for April to be hopeful,
No.
but let's focus on it in April. But I'm going to make a point I'm going to make a point. This is something I've been working on during lockdown. I think a lot of people did do a lot of looking in the mirror, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And excuse me. And I think that one of the things I told myself, which sounds kind of cliche, but it's true, and I've been putting it into action, is to be. You said something about this earlier. To be more present. Mm-hmm. This moment that you and I are having right now will never come again. And just, you and I may not be ever see each other again, ever speak again, but I'm learning so much from you right now, and I'm hoping that I'm at least giving you some energy back.
I'm
And
receiving.
yeah, you're receiving. And I hope that here I use in the hope word. I hope that others listening to this will feel the same way. And I don't feel a bit Pollyannish about that. Does anybody ever kind of give you that kind of look? That oh my goodness, really? Do you ever get that?
Well, I get that, but then when they know my story of where I've come from and how
Right.
I've been able to overcome so much, then they quickly step back and say, "Wow, I can't believe you're still here." And so I get a pass on that because it's coming from a deeper place. It's not
Right.
coming from a place of saying, "Look, I've been the hell."
Yeah, you have.
and and
That
and I made it out, and I'm telling you, hope is better.
that chapter of your book, you really were in hell, and it's interesting to me, and I know we're not really discussing that specifically, but I've got to say that as I read that, when you had this, and folks, you got to read this book, and when you had this epiphany, for want of a better term, but it was a dark epiphany in a way, because it was like, you can't keep doing this, but basically, right? I mean, something
Right.
you're getting ready to go to Germany, and yeah, I won't go to all the details, but to this day, to this day, you still say that's your trip to hell. That was your preview to hell, right?
Yes, I do, because the battlefield is the mind. And that's another issue that is so major, and that's the mental illness and
Oh,
mental health that so many people are going through. And so the battlefield is the mind. And so whenever I went through that, where I lost, I had the break with reality. Oh my goodness, that was hell. That was hell. And I'm just thankful, and I thank God that I was able to make it through that. And then I always say he gave me a better mind, because I'm a lot smarter now than I was then. That when I made it out of that. But yeah, that was. And I keep it. It's not like I am so upset and I just dwell on it. But no, I keep it to remember. I never forget where I came from.
yeah, yeah. Okay. The word here of the day is hope, and makehopeconnection.com is where you need to go. But before we finish this up, Dr. Rosalind, you get the last word, but I'm just going to remind everybody, here's one small thing you can do. If this is too much for you all to take in at once, you can do this, though. You can take a hope break right now, right after this show is over. Don't do another thing. Soon as the end credits go up, do that. Schedule that break. Find that quiet place. Take those 5 or 10 deep breaths. Think about the good things happening instead of the worst case scenario, Alex. And work on that best case scenario. And think about all the great things that could and will happen. Make that affirmation and speak it out loud. I will be okay. Things are going to be all right. And then, as you say, as Dr. Rosalind says, repeat as often as needed. I'll throw it back to you, Doc. One last bit of hope from you, please.
Well, I would like everyone to know about my latest project, and that is the practice of Hopeology. It is available now, practiceofhopeology.com. All of the things that we've been talking about and more is found in the booklet, and it's something that I'm making available. All the proceeds go back into Mothers in Crisis, because I really believe, Alex, that you and I can change the world through hope. And everyone else, as we call our citizens of hope, that join in together with us, we can make a difference, and we can change this world through hope. As long as there's breath in your body, there's still hope.
There was an old saying, I forget who said it, but hope is a thing with feathers. And Woody Allen famously had a book written called Without Feathers. But you know what? There's plenty of feathers on that bird. It's all good. Dr. Rosalind Tomkins, thank you so much for spreading some joy and some hope with us today on Mysterious Goings On.
Well, thank you. I love it, and I'd love to come back. Just let me know.
You got it. You got it. I might need some hope later, so I'll be in touch.
Okay.
Hi, this is Justin Connor, director of the Golden Age, and you're listening to the podcast Mysterious Goings On.
I love podcasting. I have since 2006, back when you had to use like a Dixie cup with string to make the thing work. And that's why I'm so excited that we recently moved Mysterious Goings On to Anchor FM to record our podcast. I gotta tell you, I don't regret it a bit. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. And you can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. I'm not going to lie to you, when I first heard about Anchor, I was a little dubious because I've been doing it the hard way for so long. But I got to tell you, it's very easy. Use a Stripe account. Get sponsors. You're not paying monthly hosting fees. The sound quality is great. The distribution is phenomenal. Friends, download the free Anchor app today if you want to start your own podcast, or go to anchor.fm to get started. Remember, you heard it here first on Mysterious Goings On. Thanks so much for listening to Mysterious Goings On. Don't forget, we have a complete archive of all of our interviews, monologues, updates, live readings, dead readings. All of that stuff is available at mgopod.com. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us so you never miss an episode. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the usual suspects. Please join us there. Again, don't forget, mgopod.com also has links where to find me on social media and how to get in touch in case you want to be a guest here on the show. Well, I think it's time that I move on for this week, but until next time, keep reading.